what do you got going on this week? What's happening? Anything exciting? Anything cool happening this week?
It's been a good week. The weather is starting to warm up. Getting
Yes.
outside, going on walks. It's been great.
Okay, tell the people because you're in Denver.
I am.
That's where we met.
Yes.
I absolutely love Denver. What's like your favorite trail in Denver?
Ooh. Okay. So I'm actually not a big hiker. I
Haley,
know. I know.
why are you in Denver? The only reason you go to Denver is do you bike?
Okay, I ski.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. Very nice.
Yes.
Okay, where's the best place to go skiing?
I personally like Copper the best. That's my
Okay.
favorite. Yeah.
Do you
So,
know? I mean, this isn't going to be a huge shock because I'm black, but I've never skied.
really?
I've
But
no.
you lived in Denver.
Yeah, and I absolutely did not ever. And I have no I don't like my dad's family is from the Bahamas, so I really think it's
Ooh.
like in my blood
Yeah.
to reject cold weather. That's why honestly like that's why moving to Texas, my husband had a few different job offers and we could have went to Ohio, a
Ooh.
couple other places and I was like
Yeah.
I just need to be warm.
Yeah.
I can't be cold anymore. But here's the thing,
Yeah.
Denver, people sleep on Denver. They don't understand that it's actually a very warm
Right.
place.
Right. Yeah, it's like sunny. I think it's
It's
like
always
3
sunny.
days out of the year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and even winters, I remember being shocked when we were there because winter was often like 50 degrees and sunny.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll get snowstorms, but they go
Right.
away. My sister came for spring break, and so that was fun. Her
Oh,
kids
that's
got to
so
swim with
fun.
my kids in the pool, heading to Extraordinary Women Conference this weekend.
Yay, that's
Yeah,
so
Grand
fun.
Prairie, Texas, so super excited about that. I wanted to make sure everybody understands just because of we've gotten some messages. I wanna make sure you guys know the direction of this show, what we are doing. We will absolutely be bringing on guests on this show who do not share our perspective. Haley and I are both very serious Christians, right? Like our entire lives revolve around God. And like I love the Bible. I've read the Bible. Oh my goodness, I'm finishing my 16th time through. I love scripture. It gets better and better for me every single time. But I want you to understand that the people that I sit down with on this show may not, they may, that'd be great if they share that value system. But if they don't, that's okay with me. They may be from a different denomination, they may be super staunch conservative or they may be super, super progressive liberal. And I just want you to know I will sit down and have conversations with them on this show. They may not be sure what they think about God at all. And I still want to invite them to have conversations because, in obviously, like I was a communication major, I love the idea of communication and relationship building. But I personally, and I have been like this my entire life, I, even in like third grade. And I was raised in very conservative private school systems. But I have always sought out relationships with people who did not see things the way I saw them. One of my best friends became Muslim, right? Like I am always, my best friend Scarlett is Jewish. Like I have always wanted to surround myself with people who were raised differently than me and think differently than me and engage with the world differently than me. I don't believe in infantilizing Christianity. I don't I don't understand that where we try to gatekeep who's allowed to sit down and have a conversation. And because I don't see in my understanding of scripture, I don't see Jesus do that. And so that's just not how I'm going to live my life. That's not how I'm going to do ministry or a podcast. So I just want you to know that if you want to listen to the show, wonderful, but you may sometimes be listening to people that you're like, wow, how do they think that way? Where would they get that idea? And I am just asking you to suspend your judgment and be okay with it. It doesn't have to change. Somebody else's convictions or values or ideas do not have to be a threat to yours. Like we can all coexist, I believe, as long as we both believe in like being respectful to one another. And I actually think now I'm rambling, but I do want to say this. I actually think one of the biggest problems that we are experiencing culturally in the United States and in the church is that we have stopped doing this. We think we have to have people pass some like box test of, I need to know what your viewpoint is on whatever cultural issue before I can decide whether or not you're safe to have a conversation with. And I just think that this is unhealthy. And I don't think it's helpful in also in just being an adult and living in this world, and especially in sharing the gospel, right? Because you have no idea how your relationship with somebody else may change how they see something, right? So I just want you to know I will do my best. Absolutely. I will never sit down with somebody who I have seen spew hate. That's not okay with me. But I will sit down with people who I don't agree with sometimes. And I hope you'll join me as we have those conversations, because I think that's how all of us grow. And can I tell you, actually, I'll tell you this, Haley. I've said it to Scarlett many times. I wrote it in my dedication in my book, What If I'm Wrong? One of the best things I ever did, because I remember when Scarlett and I first started writing together, we had a page called I'm That Wife. And we obviously, I've said, we see things often very differently.
Yeah.
One of the best things that ever happened to me was writing with her.
Mm.
I'm serious. It made me a far better writer. She has just made me so much of a better person to understand that, oh, like there are really beautiful, incredible people that were raised differently than me.
Yeah.
That my preconceived boxed notion of what makes somebody good or bad is not real. And God sees us all in our wholeness, in our complications, and all that stuff. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. What are we talking about today, Haley?
Today, we are looking at jealousy and we're asking the question, what if it isn't as bad as we think?
Okay, so you want to know what has always interested me. I said this
Yes.
last week, but I am fascinated by celebrities and
Yes.
celebrity culture. But have you ever thought about this? Like, I think it's weird for celebrities because they live in this very small world, right? And they all like date very seriously and sometimes marry and divorce and then date again. And so you're like maybe a year later at an award show and your ex-husband is there, maybe with the person he cheated on you with.
Oh.
And I always just wonder, how does that work? Like Benny Blanco was good friends with Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
Actually, Benny Blanco, I think, produced the song Go and Love Yourself that everybody speculated was about Selena Gomez. Benny Blanco wrote that song with Ed Sheeran. And then Justin got it. But like everybody put that song about Justin and Selena. And now obviously Benny Blanco and Selena are getting married. So I think that's so interesting. Like Ryan Reynolds was married to Scarlett Johansson. And then when he filmed a movie with Blake Lively, he ended up filing for divorce. And now he is married to Blake Lively. And of course, these things happen. But like, what is it like to now have to see that person again? I don't know. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah. No, I have to imagine it'd be really awkward.
Right?
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I read this article on NPR about jealousy, and it was titled, Your Jealousy, we'll put it in the show notes for you, but your jealousy is trying to tell you something, which goes with our theme, maybe jealousy isn't always bad. So the writer is talking about having an experience of jealousy, and then I'm just going to give you a direct quote of what it says. It says, that's my clue, right? They're saying when they get that feeling, that's my clue that I am imagining that I'm going to lose my influence over this person who I care about, says research psychologist Jolie Hamilton. I'm imagining that there will be less love, less attention, less of something that they'll give to me. And I thought that was interesting because when I have experienced jealousy, and for me, it's been more so professionally, just mainly because my husband he's just a high introvert. Like he doesn't have a ton of friends. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't worry about him like having all these female friends. He just doesn't have that many
Yeah.
friends, period. If his phone rings, it's me or his mom.
Yeah.
So I've never had to go through that experience with Seth. So I don't know how I would respond, but I have experienced it professionally. And when I experience professional jealousy, meaning like I see somebody else getting something that I wish I had, right? And then I feel like that choke of
Yeah.
jealousy. I think what is happening is part of me is thinking that there won't be enough for that person and me,
Hmm.
right? And of course that's not true.
Yeah.
But so this article is talking about how in romantic relationships, jealousy can be an indicator that you feel like you are missing something or need more of something from your partner. And so she's saying it's an invitation to have a conversation with your partner and say like, "Hey, I feel like maybe I'm threatened by this situation or this person. Could we maybe spend more time together?" Or, "Hey, it feels like you don't laugh with me the same way maybe you laugh when I see you
Mm.
talking to that person." So it's just an invitation to have a conversation. Are you a jealous person? And that's not bad, by the way. Like, I think we should all suspend our judgment. What if I'm wrong? I think jealousy is a normal human emotion. Have you had an experience with jealousy ever?
Hmm. I wouldn't say in like a big scale situation. I feel like over little things like friend in like small friendships, yeah,
Oh,
like things like that, like definitely have experienced jealousy. Um but I wouldn't say on like this huge scale, kind of like what you were talking about with Seth. I think a lot of the times when we think of jealousy though, like my mind goes to like
only
romantic
romantic.
relationships. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it can be so many other things.
That is so Scarlett, who, we just had on last week,
Yeah.
she is a very jealous friend.
Mm,
This is like a thing. She will get very jealous of my if I say, you know what I mean? I only have like two very, very, very best friends, Scarlett and Bimbo.
yeah.
And Scarlett, and she know like she's gonna be fine with me saying this, like because we've joked about it. She'll be
Yeah.
like threatened. And of course
Mm.
she likes Bimbo and Bimbo's
Yeah.
wonderful, but like she'll feel threatened of my as if like, it's silly, but like I can't love both of them.
Right. Right.
I'm trying to think if I've felt like that about friendships. I don't know. No, for me, mainly jealousy has been professional,
Mm. Yeah.
which is sad, maybe.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, it totally makes sense if it's your dream job or something you're going for,
Right.
working really hard for, and then someone like comes in or, it's handed to someone else.
Yes.
I think,
Okay. Let me tell you.
yeah.
I've said this story when I wrote my book, It's Not Your Turn. I remember I was so poor. I could not afford diapers. Literally, we
Mm.
were so poor. And my best friend, Jewel, that I have had since third grade. That's another thing Scarlett always says that she's like, you say everybody's your best friend. And I do that. I have that. If I know you, if I've met you, you are my best friend. I don't know why I do that. But Jewel truly is like one of my best friends. I've known her since third grade. And I could not get a job to save my life, and I'm so poor. And I felt like I had done all the right things professionally. I stayed in school. I was finishing a PhD program. I was adjuncting for like 5 different institutions trying to get in. And Jewel calls me and is like, "Hey, you're not going to believe this." And I'm like, "What?" And she's like, "I just got hired by NASA."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "Wow.
Yeah.
I am so happy for you."
Yeah.
And that truly, this is the truth. That's why I wrote It's Not Your Turn. That was the first time I heard what I believe to be the Holy Spirit say, "Hey, it's not your turn, but
Mm.
it's hers." And so
Yeah.
you're going to clap for your friend.
Yeah.
Who we are when it's not our turn is actually more important than who we will be when it is.
Mm.
Okay, I know you have some great submissions today, but before we get to that, let's define the term. Remember, for this segment, I am going to tell you a word and its actual definition, and I want you to ask yourself how knowing the actual definition may change how you see your relationship with that word. Today's term is jealousy. I wanted to share a bit from my communication coursework on jealousy and relationships because I always thought this was interesting. So, the definition of jealousy is the reaction to a relationship threat.
Hmm.
So jealousy in romantic relationships is about you feeling triggered that something is being threatened. And professional jealousy would be the same. You are
Mm.
feeling triggered by someone else that some dream or goal you have is now somehow threatened because of what's happening with them. And for me, I think knowing this definition is so helpful because then I can sit in my room alone or go on a walk and say, okay, Heather, is this an actual threat?
Mm.
Is there a real threat happening? And I think asking myself this question, why am I perceiving this as a threat to my goal or to my desire or to my safety or to my needs? And oftentimes, what happens when you actually ask yourself these questions is you realize, oh, there is no threat.
Hmm.
Like I've been triggered by something that I may perceive to be threatening in that moment about another person, but that's not necessarily reality. And for romantic jealousy, tell me what you think about this. Research shows that men and women experience jealousy for different reasons. Men experience jealousy if they feel their partner could become intimate, physically intimate
Mm.
with another man, while women experience jealousy if they feel their partner may develop an emotional intimacy with another woman. I think that's super interesting that
Yeah.
women tend to focus more on emotional connection and emotional intimacy and perceive that to be the greatest threat. And men feel like physical intimacy is a greater threat. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, that's so interesting. I think it does kind of make sense because typically, I mean, this isn't always the case,
Right.
but
Gender
women,
stereotypes right
yes,
now. Yeah.
yes, women tend to be more nurturing and
Sure.
emotional. And so it makes sense to me that they would be more concerned about an emotional connection because like it emotional connections are can be really strong
Yeah.
and it can be just as strong as a physical connection, which clearly can like ruin a relationship if it's not with your significant other. So I do think that's really interesting and it does make sense to me.
Yeah. And I always tell my students like intimacy is about having a person that you are sharing thoughts, feelings, dreams, beliefs.
Hmm.
So you absolutely can, I think, threaten a romantic relationship with a friendship because intimacy is about emotional connection.
Yeah.
And so I do think couples need to be careful about,
Mm.
and this is why we'll sit down with people who see things totally differently. I guarantee you I could sit down with somebody who's like, oh, you're being too conservative. That's not
Mm.
true. Men and women can be friends. And I think, of course, they can be friends. But my understanding and my research in the time I've spent studying communication and intimacy, it is very much the sharing of deep thoughts, dreams, values, beliefs. And actually, we only do this 2% of the time in conversation.
Mm.
So when you find somebody that you're like dipping into that 2% with, it's creating a very, very strong bond. So I would say, even if nothing physical is happening, I would say it's probably coming. You have to be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah.
When it comes to intimacy.
Mm.
What kind of submissions did you get on jealousy? I have a feeling
Yeah.
it's going to be a big show today.
Yeah. We got some good ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you want to go to the first one?
Yeah. Let's
All
do
right, let's
it.
hear it.
Okay. So 29 female, am marrying the love of my life, 31 male, in a few months. We've been planning this wedding for over a year and it's been a beautiful experience. But there's one person casting a shadow, and that's my fiance's work wife, Lily, 30 female.
Mm.
My fiance and Lily have been coworkers for 5 years. At first, I was relieved he had a good friend at work since his job can be demanding. I tried to be the cool, understanding partner who wasn't bothered by how close they were. But over time, their bond became something I didn't know how to handle. Lily is a huge part of his life. They text constantly, often late into the night.
Oh.
She knows things about him that I sometimes don't, and it
Mm.
stings to realize how much he turns to her for advice instead of me. As we got deeper into wedding planning, Lily started chiming in with her opinions. She suggested our venue
Oh
didn't
my
feel like
goodness.
him. Yeah. She mentioned offhandedly about my dress that she knew his style and could help me pick something he would love. I tried to laugh it off, but it hurt.
Mm.
Last week was our engagement party, and it was supposed to be a happy day, but I kept noticing Lily glued to his side. I tried to join their conversation, but every time she'd bring up a work story that left me feeling like a third wheel
Oh
at
my
my
goodness.
own engagement party. Later, I walked up just as she was saying, if you change your mind, you could always marry me instead.
Oh
She
my
says,
goodness.
yeah. She says she pulled her fiance aside and told him how inappropriate her comment was. He was surprised and said she was taking it too seriously. At the end of the night, Lily came up to me asking if I was really okay with how close they were and said something like, I mean, I can't imagine him with anyone else. She says it felt like a knife to my chest. I told my fiance I didn't want her at our wedding. It was too painful to have someone there who clearly saw herself as part of our relationship. And he got defensive, saying I was overreacting, letting jealousy ruin a
Mm.
friendship he cherishes. Now he's barely talking to me because he says I'm making him choose between his best friend and fiance. Am I wrong about wanting to uninvite her to our wedding?
So I have friends who have like had not this strong,
Yeah.
but experiences similar to not similar. Okay, I don't want to. Experiences with weddings with very good girlfriends
Mm,
and feeling uncomfortable about them being there. And I, but and people can call me crazy. I'm I'm fine with I think being called crazy because I would just this would no.
yeah,
Like,
I
am I
agree.
wrong, sis? No.
Yeah.
And I have told my friends, this is how I would live my life and have lived my life with relationships. Like, I absolutely think you can have other friends,
Yeah.
right? But on the pyramid hierarchy of who you are calling when you get good news,
Yeah.
I need to always be at the top. And
Yeah.
the second I feel, and I don't know this person, right? So, like, whether or not this perception that she has is true, we don't know that. But I would say if it is true, I would never marry somebody. I would never marry somebody who is belittling what I am telling you.
Yeah.
If I am telling you, right? We all say, like, you have to communicate. I am
Yeah.
communicating to you how I feel. And I personally would not want to marry somebody who belittled my feelings.
Totally. Totally.
And I
Yeah.
would love, and I always say this to people like, no, so go get a therapist and sit down with your therapist and let them sit and tell the story to a third party
Yeah.
and see if they keep the gaslighting up.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, even him saying that she's making him choose between his best
Yeah.
friend and fiance. That's even like that shouldn't be a choice if that's your
Right.
fiance.
I you know what? And this is, by the way, like, this is why I love Taylor Swift, because she'll talk about these things and then everybody, and she says this, right? Like, what does she say? Every time you call me crazy, I get more crazy, right? Because she's saying, like, this is what we do to women. A
Yeah.
woman like a very valid, hey, I am uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
And I just think it's interesting. And I wonder how much of this is sexism, because if this was the other way around,
Hmm.
and it was her with this male friend that is giving all this input and that she's calling her work husband,
Yeah.
I just do you I highly doubt that this guy would be like, "Oh yeah, that's cool."
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really think I feel like we do this to women. We belittle women's feelings, and we always make it seem like women are always overreacting.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's like, I have a very measured response to the situation. This
Yeah.
is If I am acting crazy, it's because this situation is so crazy. I cannot believe it's happening.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, what's the other one?
Okay, here's the next one. I'm 30 and I have a 1-year-old baby and a husband. We live a comfortable, boring life in the suburbs. I have a younger sister who's 25 and lives a big city life. She is single, has her own apartment, and goes out often with her friends. My husband was born to be a dad and live a quiet life. He's been wearing New Balances and cargo shorts since I met him. He stays home, plays video games, cares for our family, and tends to his vegetable garden. I tend towards introversion, and for the most part, I like my life. But ever since we had our baby, I've been stir crazy and wishing that
Mm,
I had more of a fun life as a young person. I have
mm,
hobbies and a career and all of that, but no social life or anything. Note, having a baby didn't change my social life. I've just never really had one. Never
hmm.
dated either, just my husband. Anyway, my sister and I were talking on the phone, and she was telling me some story about a party she went to. I said, "Gosh, I'm so jealous of you sometimes," and my husband overheard. After the
Mm.
call, he said it's like I have one foot out the door and asked if I even wanted this life. I said, of course I did, and it was normal to have occasional regrets. I feel bad for saying this knowing he was nearby, but I honestly didn't think it was a huge deal. Am I in the wrong?
Mm. I mean, I don't know. I don't, of course, I don't think it's wrong to talk to your sister. You know what I mean? And even
Right.
say things that maybe you wouldn't say if your husband was standing right there because you're talking to your sister.
Yeah.
You're just having a conversation. And this is the thing, like, it's never wrong to be human. I think oh man, I want to get this right. I'm not going to get it right. I think it's like 5, but don't quote me. Every person goes through like 3 to 5 major life transitions, and having a baby is a major life transition.
Yeah.
You are reacting to the responsibility of now being a mom, and your body is not your own. Your schedule is not your own. Your sleep is not everything becomes about this other little person. And so this is why I think therapy is so important, and I highly recommend
Mm.
everybody go to therapy, because it's like you have to. The reason I started going to therapy, honestly, was because I realized I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. I also serve in ministry, right? And
Mhm.
I have always kind of been the friend that um, is like the one that you come to with your problems, right? I've been like that since I was a child, and so therapy for me is the only time, 1 hour a week, right, where
Mhm.
I am actually just focusing on myself.
Yeah.
And I think that that's important because I'm a person too. And I need to
Yeah.
be able to have a place to say, oh, I feel like I'm missing out on something, even if it's not true. Just because you
Yeah.
feel it doesn't make it true.
Right.
I don't know. What do you
Totally.
think?
Yeah. I mean, I probably can't speak to it in the same extent because I'm not like a mom, but I don't even not being a mom, I don't think it's wrong. She's just
No.
I feel like I've even heard this from people of like, "Oh, you're young, like life is going to change when you have kids."
Yeah.
And like that's just the reality of it. So I don't think it's wrong. She's even saying like, "I love my husband. I love my baby." It's not having the baby that changed it. Like she even says my social life wasn't big before I had a baby, but she's just wishing that maybe she did more before she had a baby. And
Yeah. And
I don't think that's wrong.
I will say, I don't know if you were ever a partier, Haley, but
Yeah.
I partied hard. I went to I did a lot of partying I mean, I did it mainly when I was young. I would say like high school and then my first couple years of college. And I just want to say, ma'am, you didn't miss that much. You really don't miss that much. I think what people think, and so much of it, like, you're drunk and you don't remember. Like,
Hmm.
and some of it is like just talking the next day about the things that you didn't remember, and somebody telling you you did this, and you're like, I did that. Ha, ha, ha. It's like, what? Why is that so fun?
Yeah. Right.
Not remembering, you know what I mean? Or like doing things that you would never want, that you actually feel shame or embarrassment over. And here's what I would say too to our friend:
Hmm.
it is never too late to go make some friends.
Yeah.
I am a big believer in having a social life, and I have best friends that I talk to on the phone almost every single day, right? Or I go on a walk with my neighbor. We make time to
Yeah.
go on a walk every single week. Every person, we are wired to be in social relationships. I actually reject the idea that we get married and now that's my only friend. I don't think that that's
Hmm.
healthy for
Yeah.
anybody. Go make friends and go to dinner and have a girls' night, join a Bible study, like, have a social life. And then
Yeah.
I bet you that you wouldn't feel that resentment, I think, if you had some more relationships. I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you make friends? That's always the question that people
Mm,
say.
that's
Because
a
if you're
good
in school,
question.
it's so
Right.
easy, right? It's
Right.
so much harder outside of school.
Yeah, I think the older you get, the harder it becomes, especially if you like I would say a job could be a place, but if
Yeah.
she's been in her job for a while, I mean, that can be tough. But I do think that there are ways like church community,
Yeah.
even like take your kid to the park and
Right.
talk with a mom that's there. Like,
Right.
you
Find a
know?
group.
Yeah.
One of my dear friends and ministry partners, she like joined a women's community group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like go join an exercise class. I bet you would
Totally.
meet somebody there.
Yeah.
I also I love having work friends. I work from home now, so Haley's my only friend my
Yeah.
husband just said the other day. He was like, "Are you talking to Haley again?" I was like, we text like all day right now.
Yeah. Me
But
too.
when I'm at work, I would always, if I wanted to like make a friend, I remember I had this. She was like the administrative assistant in our office, and I could tell she didn't really want to be my friend. Like she was. I kept trying to like make a joke, and she wouldn't pick
Aw.
up what I was putting down. So then I started buying her coffee. And I
Aw.
would just come in the morning with a coffee for me and a coffee for her. And maybe it's bribery. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you, by the end of the semester, that girl was my friend.
There you
And we
go.
started having lunch together. She came to my house. She put a weave in my hair. We became very good friends because I started buying her coffee. So don't be afraid, I think, to put yourself out there because the
Yeah.
worst thing that's ever going to happen, I say this to my kids all the time. The worst thing that's going to happen is somebody is like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
your life will go on. The best thing that could happen is that you make a relationship.
Yeah.
And so to me, like the pro far outweighs the con.
Right. Totally.
Life has naturally embedded in it as part of the human experience transitions.
Mm.
And how we navigate those transitions, I think, is what defines how we perceive ourselves within them. So just give yourself grace. I'm a big believer in self-compassion, allowing yourself to say, hey, I am at a new stage of life. I have
Mm.
this brand new baby and things are just going to look different. And I may have some feelings that I agree or don't agree with. Just because I have a thought doesn't make it reality. I want to close every episode with a segment I call Day in the Bible. And this is where I share something I have learned in Bible study with you that will beg the question, what if I'm wrong about how I have been reading or thinking or explaining this Bible passage? Today, we are going to look at Numbers 12:1. Numbers 12:1 reads, Miriam and Aaron began to talk against Moses because of his Cushite wife, for he had married a Cushite. We have to be careful not to read our 21st century understanding into a first century context. Remember, every time I read the Bible, I am having a cross cultural experience. I often heard people talk about Numbers 12:1 and say, oh, like they were being racist against Moses' wife. And that's because our history with African American slavery often causes us to read the text in Numbers 12 with connections to our own prejudice. But in misreading scripture through Western eyes, we learn that Moses' wife, being a Cushite, bothered Miriam and Aaron, but not for the reasons a Western culture with a history of African American slavery would assume. Cush was an area in the southern Nile River Valley. The people were dark skinned Africans. We associate Africans with slavery in the West because that
Mm.
is our history. But that was not Moses' history. That was not Moses' reality. The slave race, in Moses' understanding, was him. It was the Hebrews. J. Daniel Hayes says that our current Western perception of Africa has influenced the way we read about Africans and the people of Cush in the Old Testament. We assume Aaron and Miriam are upset with Moses for marrying a Black woman, suggesting that the people of Cush were beneath the Hebrews. The reality is that Miriam and Aaron were most likely upset with Moses for marrying up. We see jealousy on display in Numbers 12:1. Misreading scripture through Western eyes reveals that the Cushites were not a slave race. They were a respected and highly skilled race of soldiers. If you read Exodus, you'll find the Israelites saying to Moses, "Who made you ruler and judge over us?" There was a presumption that the palace boy thought he was better than the slave race he actually came from. They feel like Moses thinks he is better than them. He grew up trained in the palace. He speaks with God face to face. And he also goes and marries a dark skinned African wife from Cush. And she is from an elite race of soldiers. This passage is not about their negative perceptions of Africans, it is about their jealousy. Always remember that scripture is a cross cultural experience. Part of understanding it is going through and doing some research on the history or the context or the culture of that time. That's it for our series, What If I'm Wrong? Relationship Edition. Join us next week. We're starting a new theme for the month of April. Haley, what is our theme for the month of April?
Yes. So, our theme for the month of April is purpose. We're going to be talking about what if I'm wrong about my purpose? And you can send me submissions if you want us to discuss whatever experience you are questioning on the podcast. You can email me at whatifimwrongpod@gmail.com.
I cannot wait to have this conversation with you guys. My book, What If I'm Wrong? Pre-order it right now. What If I'm Wrong? It releases April 8th, and it is all about, we're going to be in this in the entire month of April, but it is all about knowing your passion and finding your purpose. And actually, one of the lines I say in the book is that, what if some dreams have to die so that passion can be born? You will understand what that means next week. I'm Heather Thompson Day, and I will see you next week on What If I'm Wrong?